What's up, nerds? How you doing? You all right? No? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what else isn't all right though? This 10-year-old office PC that I got for 50 bucks. Now the cool thing about computers like this one is that they're actually pretty okay to make all right. With nothing but a crappy screwdriver and the ability to Google things.
And you too can look like me. Gotcha!
Before we get to making it all right though, let's run through the specs of this PC. So it's got a quad-core Intel i5. The dark days are over. The dark days are over. The dark days are over. It's 3rd gen, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'll put it up on screen right here. It's got a GTX 730, 8 gigs of RAM. These chips suck. A distinct lack of an SSD. This PC is complete garbage. I couldn't name a single redeeming quality about it other than the fact that I only paid 50 bucks for it. But fear not, because hey, I've got a cheap screwdriver and the ability to Google things. Therefore, I'm gonna try and turn this steaming pile of garbage into an actually okay gaming PC that doubles as a repeatable flip that you, dear viewer, can attempt for yourself.
By the way, once you're done watching this video, check out our most recent video about how to flip a PC.
So, why don't we dive headfirst into making this completely unbearable system pretty bearable. Let's start by unscrewing the power supply. Push down on that little tab and yoink that sucker right on out.
Yoink.
Now pop this tab open and pull that GTX 730 out. Next, run it over with a car. No, seriously. Unscrew the motherboard. Then unplug the stuff from the motherboard. Pop that I/O shield out, or hit it, your call. Then pull the hard drive out. Sweet, let's meet our new case. Why isn't it working? Whoa, come on. There we go. That's right, the DIY PC Q3 ARGB fish tank case. Not too bad for 65 bucks. Anyways, let's get on with the upgrade. Time to transplant these guts into this case and put a bow tie on one heck of a pig. These look like they'd make some good snacks. Screw that old PSU back into the new case. Now before we throw the motherboard into this system here, let's upgrade the RAM real quick, because that single 8 gig stick, not too good. I've got two 8 gig sticks of Ripjaws DDR3 RAM that'll fit perfectly in this board. Do note that if you're going to be upgrading an Optiplex like this with a 3rd or 4th gen Intel, or really anything older than that, you're going to be using DDR3 RAM instead of DDR4 RAM. Prices have been on the rise for it recently and it's kind of disappointing, but it is what it is. To upgrade your RAM, press down on both of these tabs on the side and then pull it out. Make sure all of your tabs are open. Line up this notch on the stick and that little bump in the board, and then press down till you hear a good click. Now do the same with your second stick. Now, the color isn't great for this build, but that's all right because hey, guess what? It kind of matches the new GPU. Speaking of, to replace that now destroyed 730, we've gone with another card that isn't great, but hey, it'll suit the system pretty well. That's a Radeon 6500 XT. Now yeah, the red kind of matches on the back here. And yeah, I think it'll look okay in the system. And unscrew that side panel. Now set this off to the side, we don't want this breaking. Make sure you get your I/O shield in there, and make sure it's oriented correctly. Sweet, let's get the motherboard screwed in. Let's grab some cable extensions real quick just to help elevate the look of this build. I've got a bunch left over, but they're about 20 bucks on Amazon, so we'll add that to the build price. Now before you throw the cable extensions in, make sure to put the cable combs on and make sure to get them on the right way. It can be pretty obnoxious when you have to take them off and put them back on again. Now thread your guy through this hole. Come around back and give it a good old tug. Grab a clear zip tie and send him through this little hole here. You idiot. Go into the hole, wrap it around, thread the needle, or the zip tie in this case. Pull your extensions to the desired position, and once you got them there, hold them, crank them down, straighten it out, and then grab your scissors and trim the little tail. Double check that it looks all right from the front. This is looking pretty okay. Now grab your CPU cable that's already been plugged in and thread it through this little routing hole. All right then, now that that's out of the way, let's plug in your front I/O. All right, grab your USB 3.0, which is this, and look on in horror and realize that your motherboard is too old for USB 3.0. For now, start with your audio and USB headers. Route those through this little hole down here. Give the PC a good old rotate. This one's USB, and this one's audio. If you want, you can go the extra mile and actually reroute the audio through this other hole down here. Get those plugged in, then grab your front panel plugs, rip them apart so you have a little bit of room to breathe, and then bring them through here. This doesn't have normal front panel headers. This is where that ability to Google comes in. Give me a second, I'll be right back. So after some basic Googling, I figured out that you need to route the power switch up here. Do it on these two vertical ones on the far right side. Time to throw an SSD in here. We're gonna give this a 1 terabyte SATA SSD, which is gonna make it about 3.5 times quicker than the hard drive that was in there before. I decided to go with this one from Team Group. Plug your SATA in, then come up to the same one that your USB is routed through. Plug it in. Now, let's throw our graphics card in. Pop this slot open. Loosen this guy. In fact, take them all the way off. And then slot your graphics card in. Now grab some screws and screw this in. Then grab your second screw, because remember, it's a sin to not screw your graphics card in all the way. Now that you got that in, time to throw your GPU cables on. Plug this in, then route this down through the same hole as your USB. Make sure your cable combs are pretty. Now, it's time to cable manage. Start untangling and organizing your cables. You may need to unplug and replug stuff in just to make sure that it's done well. For this case, grab your reset switch and plug it in here. This will allow us to control the RGB fans, even though we don't have an RGB header on the motherboard itself. Also, make sure that you get your SATA power plugged in. Now, given that this is the stock power supply, we're gonna need to use some fire hazard, cable adapters, dongles, whatever you're gonna call them, to make sure that we can power this graphics card. We are gonna be using 2 of these SATA to 6-pin adapters. Great, and now that we have 2 6-pins, we need a dual 6-pin to 8-pin adapter. Great, now let's plug that fire hazard in, and make sure to plug your SSD's SATA power in. Now, grab all your extra cables, bunch them up, and consolidate them into one area. Grab a color matched zip tie, throw it in, zip tie these bad boys, and keep them loose so that you can adjust them for now. Now do what you can to move these so that you won't be able to see them from the front. Now tuck your SSD into this safe little space here. Grab the rest of this, just kind of tuck it on in. So the nice thing about dual chamber cases is that you don't necessarily need to cable manage. Sweet, now that you got this cable managed, time to test. Now I will warn you, if you don't use a USB adapter, this guy is not gonna work, meaning that your blue port up here, your USB 3, is not gonna be functional. Before I list it, I will get one of those, but I wanna get this video posted ASAP, so. Before testing, remember the #1 rule. Do not put the panels on yet. Welcome to the disorganized corner of testing. Time to throw Windows on this bad boy. All right, now that we got us some Windows, time to install some drivers. Oh, look at that. Windows did a thing and installed drivers for us. Isn't that nice of them? Grab us some Firmark. Personally, I prefer the first version of Firmark, so I'm downloading Firmark 1, not 2. That's just because I'm used to it. And then also, let's download Core Temp. Core Temp lets us monitor the temperature of our CPU cores, as the name implies. All right. Let's do a GPU stress test. This is at 1080p. Our 6500 XT is getting about 95 FPS. And as for our CPU, let's run the two together, CPU and GPU stress test, and just see if the power supply takes a dookie. Nope, as we see, both of these are utilized. Our GPU is at 100% utilization, but fluctuating between about 95 and 100. And our CPU is pegged at 100, and look at that. So it looks like our CPU is topping out at about 60 degrees, which is totally fine. And our GPU appears to be slowly stabilizing. It looks like it's not gonna reach any higher than 65. So we should be good on temps. And look at this, even though we don't have an ARGB header on our motherboard, we can change the lighting of our fans with the reset button. That's pretty convenient. Great. Now that we know that Windows is installed and that everything's working, let's peel the peels and get these side panels back on. Make sure to get this bad boy back on. And would you look at that? For about 250 bucks, we put this together. Let's run through that pricing real quick. We paid 50 bucks for the entire Optiplex machine. We paid 65 for this case, 70 for the graphics card, 20 bucks for the cable extensions, and 20 bucks for the RAM. Doesn't look too bad. Let's compare before and after. Isn't that a huge difference? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see me sell this, then subscribe, because that's going to be one of the next videos, where we're going to sell this and figure out what our next flip is going to be. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Ryan, out.